The morning sun broke through the thin curtains of a small apartment on the east side of town. The kitchen smelled faintly of coffee, though there was barely enough for one cup. A man stood by the stove frying an egg in an old pan that had seen better days. His name was Ethan. He was in his mid-30s, tall but a little worn out from years of hard work. His eyes, though tired, still carried a quiet warmth that said more about him than his clothes ever could. On the other side of the small kitchen table sat his son, Liam, an 8-year-old boy with messy brown hair and a grin that could light up even the gloomiest mornings. He was busy drawing on the back of an old grocery receipt with a half-broken pencil. Every few seconds he'd look up and ask, "Dad, are we still going to the park later?" Ethan smiled faintly, flipping the egg. "If the weather stays nice, we'll go after I'm done with work, all right?" Liam nodded eagerly. "Can we bring the ball?" "Of course," Ethan said. "But first you've got to eat something. No soccer on an empty stomach." Breakfast was simple: 1 fried egg, a piece of toast, and a small apple sliced in half so they could share it. That was how most mornings went. There was never much, but they made it enough. Ethan always made sure Liam got the bigger half, pretending not to notice when his son tried to push the last bite toward him. After breakfast, Ethan grabbed his old lunchbox. It was dented and scratched, but still worked fine. Inside, he packed 2 sandwiches, one with peanut butter and jam for Liam to have after school, and one for himself to eat during his lunch break. He also filled a small bottle with water. As they walked out the door, Ethan checked his phone. No new messages, no missed calls. He sighed quietly. He'd applied for a few better jobs recently, ones that might give him a chance to work fewer hours and spend more time with his son, but no one had called back yet. Outside, the air smelled of fresh rain. The neighborhood wasn't fancy. The buildings were old, the sidewalks cracked, but everyone knew each other. Ethan greeted Mrs. Green, the elderly lady from next door, as she watered her plants. "Morning," he said with a wave. She smiled. "Off to work again, Ethan? You never stop, do you?" He chuckled softly. "Gotta keep the lights on somehow." Liam tugged on his hand. "Bye, Mrs. Green." "Bye, sweetheart," she called back. "Don't let your dad work too hard today." Ethan laughed, though deep down he knew he didn't have a choice. He worked at a construction site across town. It wasn't glamorous work. It was long hours, heavy lifting, and the pay wasn't great, but it was honest. He'd started the job right after Liam's mother left. Those first few months had been rough. There were nights he'd lie awake, wondering how he was going to make rent or pay for school supplies, but somehow they always made it through. As they walked toward the bus stop, Ethan looked down at Liam. "Remember to be good at school today, okay? Listen to your teacher and no running in the halls." Liam rolled his eyes playfully. "Yes, Dad, you tell me that every day," Ethan smiled. "Just making sure." The bus arrived with a loud hiss of brakes. It was crowded as usual, with people heading to work. Ethan lifted Liam up so he could find a seat, then stood nearby holding onto the metal pole. The bus rattled through the city streets, past coffee shops, bakeries, and tall buildings. Ethan caught himself glancing out the window, wondering what it would feel like to work in one of those offices, wearing a clean shirt instead of a dusty vest, sitting behind a desk instead of hauling bricks. But he quickly shook the thought away. That wasn't his world. His world was simple: keep working, keep smiling, and keep his son safe. When they reached Liam's school, Ethan knelt down beside him. "I'll pick you up at the park later, all right?" Liam nodded. "Can we feed the ducks again?" "If we can find some bread," Ethan said. "Now go on, or you'll be late." He watched his son run through the school gates, his backpack bouncing behind him. That sight alone was enough to give Ethan strength for the day. He turned and walked toward the bus stop again, heading to work. The construction site was noisy and full of movement. Machines whirring, workers shouting instructions, metal clanging. Ethan put on his helmet and gloves and joined the others. He was one of the more experienced hands on the team, always reliable and rarely complained. Around noon, the whistle blew for lunch. Ethan found a quiet spot near the fence where the breeze carried the faint smell of pine from a nearby park. He sat down, opened his lunchbox, and smiled faintly. The peanut butter sandwich looked a little squished, but it tasted fine. As he ate, he thought about the park he promised Liam they'd visit. It was their little ritual: Saturday afternoons in the park, playing soccer, feeding ducks, and just being together without worrying about bills or broken pipes. After lunch, He got back to work, pushing through the rest of the day. By the time the shift ended, his muscles ached, his hands were dusty, and his clothes smelled like concrete. But when he checked the clock and saw it was almost 4, he smiled. That meant it was almost time to see Liam again. He cleaned up quickly, washed his hands at the outdoor sink, and caught the bus back to the neighborhood. The sky had turned a soft orange by the time he reached the park. Kids were running around, parents sat chatting on benches, and birds fluttered near the pond. He spotted Liam waving from near the swings. "Dad, over here." Ethan grinned and jogged over. "Hey, champ. Did you have a good day?" "It was great. We did art class and I got a gold star," Liam said proudly, showing off his drawing. "That's my boy," Ethan said, patting his head. "Now ready for a game?" They kicked the soccer ball back and forth for a while, laughing and teasing each other. Ethan didn't care about the exhaustion anymore. Seeing his son's happiness made every hour of hard work worth it. After a while, they sat on a bench to rest. The air was cool and the sound of laughter filled the park. Ethan opened his lunchbox again. Inside was the second sandwich, slightly dry but still good. He broke it in half, handing one piece to Liam. They ate in comfortable silence. Liam leaned against his dad's arm, his small head resting against the rough fabric of Ethan's jacket. "Dad," he said softly, "when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a big house." Ethan chuckled, trying not to let the emotion show. "You just worry about school for now. Big houses can wait, but you always work so hard," Liam said. "You deserve a break." Ethan looked out at the sunset. "Sometimes, son, working hard is the only way we can take care of the people we love." Liam thought for a moment, then nodded slowly, even if he didn't fully understand. As the evening light dimmed, Ethan noticed a small girl wandering near the edge of the park. She looked about the same age as Liam, maybe a little younger. Her clothes were neat, but her expression was lost, like she wasn't sure where she was. She stood near a tree, glancing around nervously. Ethan frowned slightly. There weren't any adults nearby who looked like her parents. He leaned toward Liam. "Stay here for a second, okay?" Liam nodded, watching as his dad walked over to the little girl. Ethan knelt down gently so he wouldn't scare her. "Hey there," he said kindly. "Are you all right? Did you lose your parents?" The girl looked up with wide blue eyes. "I don't know where they went," she said in a small voice. "I was playing with my nanny, but then I saw a bird and followed it. And now I can't find her." Ethan's heart softened instantly. "It's okay," he said in a calm voice. "You're safe. What's your name?" "Sophie," she replied. "That's a pretty name," he said. "I'm Ethan, and that's my son, Liam. We're just having some dinner here. Would you like to sit with us while we wait for your nanny?" Sophie hesitated, then nodded. Ethan led her back to the bench where Liam sat. The two kids smiled shyly at each other. Ethan pulled out the rest of his sandwich and handed it to her. "You look hungry," he said. "Here, have some." Her eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "Of course," he said. "We've got enough to share." She took a small bite, then another, and soon she was eating happily. Liam started telling her about the ducks in the pond. And before long, the three of them were laughing together as if they'd known each other for years. When Sophie finished eating, she looked up and said softly, "Thank you." "You're very kind," Ethan smiled. "You're welcome, sweetheart. Kindness doesn't cost anything." A few minutes later, a woman came rushing into the park, clearly panicked. "Sophie, oh, thank heavens." She ran over, hugging the girl tightly. Ethan stood up, relieved. The woman thanked him over and over, explaining that she was Sophie's nanny and had been terrified when she couldn't find her. Ethan simply nodded. "Just glad she's safe." After they left, Ethan sat back down beside his son. Liam looked up at him. "Dad, you gave her your food." Ethan smiled faintly. "She needed it more than I did." Liam leaned his head on his father's arm again. "You always help people." Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked up at the darkening sky and said quietly, "One day, son. I hope you do the same." As the park lights flickered on, the two of them sat there in peaceful silence, unaware that the little girl they'd just shared food with wasn't just any child. She was the daughter of one of the richest men in the city. But for Ethan, none of that mattered. He didn't help her because of who she was. He helped her because it was the right thing to do. And as they walked home hand in hand, tired but content, Ethan had no idea that this small act of kindness was about to change both their lives forever. The next morning started like most mornings for Ethan and his son. The alarm buzzed softly, echoing through the small apartment. Ethan rubbed his eyes and sat up, his muscles still sore from yesterday's long shift. He could hear the faint sound of rain tapping against the window and the hum of traffic outside. Liam was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the couch, flipping through his worn-out comic book. "Dad," he said excitedly, "are we going to the park again today?" Ethan smiled faintly, pulling on his work jacket. "We'll see, buddy. Depends if the rain stops." He made breakfast, oatmeal with a drizzle of honey and a sliced banana. Simple but warm. They ate together quietly, the sound of the spoon scraping the bowl the only thing filling the room. After breakfast, Ethan packed lunch for them both. 2 sandwiches again, one for Liam, one for himself. He didn't know it yet, but that small act of packing an extra sandwich would matter more than he imagined. Before leaving, Ethan looked at the small photo on the fridge. It was an old picture of him holding a baby Liam, both of them smiling. It reminded him why he pushed through every hard day. He kissed his son on the head. "Let's go, champ." The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time they left. The city felt quieter than usual. Cars splashed through puddles and the air smelled clean. They caught the same old bus, Ethan standing while Liam sat by the window drawing smiley faces on the foggy glass. After dropping Liam at school, Ethan made his way to the construction site. He had a long day ahead, pouring cement, fixing scaffolding, and helping the electrician with wiring. The hours blurred together as they often did, but through the noise of machines and shouting, Ethan's mind drifted back to the little girl from the park. Sophie. That was her name. He wondered if she'd made it home safely, if her parents knew how scared she must have been. He hoped she wasn't in trouble. Kids wandered sometimes, it wasn't their fault. Still, the way she had smiled after eating his sandwich had stuck with him. It had been such a pure, innocent smile, like she hadn't seen simple kindness in a while. At lunchtime, Ethan sat under the same tree by the fence. The rain had stopped and the ground was damp. He opened his lunchbox and looked at the sandwich before taking a bite. For some reason, it didn't taste the same as yesterday, maybe because part of him wished he could share it again, with that lost little girl who reminded him of how gentle the world could still be. When the whistle blew at the end of the day, Ethan cleaned up, washed the dirt from his hands, and made his way toward Liam's school. The sun peeked through the clouds as he arrived. Liam came running out, waving his art project. "Dad, look, we painted birds today." Ethan grinned. "That's great, buddy. You're getting better every week," Liam beamed proudly. "Can we go to the park again?" Ethan thought for a moment. He was tired, but he couldn't say no to that face. "All right," he said, "but just for a bit. I've got to be up early tomorrow." They walked hand in hand toward the same park. The puddles reflected the orange sky and the smell of wet grass filled the air. The park wasn't crowded, just a few joggers, some kids on swings, and a couple of parents chatting by the benches. Liam ran ahead, kicking his ball through the damp grass. Ethan followed slowly, enjoying the cool air. He sat down on a wooden bench and watched his son play. Moments like these reminded him why all the struggle was worth it. Then, as he looked toward the playground, he noticed a familiar figure. A little girl with light brown hair tied in a neat ponytail, wearing a pink coat. She was holding a small toy bear and laughing as she chased a pigeon across the path. Ethan blinked. It couldn't be, but it was. It was Sophie, the same little girl from yesterday. He looked around, half expecting to see her nanny nearby this time. And yes, a woman sat on a bench not too far away, scrolling on her phone. Sophie seemed safe, so Ethan didn't want to intrude. But when she saw him, her face lit up. "Mr. Ethan," she called out in her soft, cheerful voice. Ethan smiled. "Hey, Sophie. You remember me?" She nodded happily and ran over, her toy bear bouncing at her side. "You shared your sandwich with me yesterday," she said. "I told my dad about you." Ethan chuckled softly. "Oh, you did? I hope I didn't get you in trouble." Sophie shook her head quickly. "No. My dad said I was lucky you found me." She paused, tilting her head. "He wanted to meet you." Ethan was taken aback. "Meet me?" Before he could ask more, the nanny stood up and walked over, looking relieved to see Sophie talking politely. "Sophie, sweetheart, don't run off again," she said gently. Then she turned to Ethan. "You must be the man who helped her yesterday. She hasn't stopped talking about you." Ethan smiled awkwardly. "It was nothing, really. Just a sandwich, the nanny shook her head. It wasn't nothing. You have no idea how worried we were yesterday. He nodded humbly. I'm just glad she was safe. Sophie tugged on his sleeve. Can Liam come play? Ethan laughed softly. I think he'd like that. He turned and called out, Liam, come meet someone. Liam jogged over, smiling curiously. Sophie grinned at him, holding out her toy bear. This is Mr. Buttons, she said proudly. Liam smiled shyly. Hi, Mr. Buttons, he said, making her giggle. Soon the two kids were running around together, laughing as they chased each other near the swings. Ethan and the nanny sat nearby, watching them play. They get along well, the nanny said with a small smile. Yeah, Ethan said, watching his son laugh freely. He doesn't have many friends outside school. It's nice seeing him like this, the nanny nodded. Sophie doesn't either. Her dad's always busy. She spends most of her time with tutors and bodyguards. Yesterday was probably the first time in a long while she got to just be a kid. Ethan looked at the little girl and felt a pang of sadness. She had all the things his son didn't. Expensive clothes, fancy toys, security guards. But maybe she didn't have what really mattered. Freedom. As the kids played, Ethan and the nanny talked a bit more. He learned her name was Clara, and that she worked for the Langford family. He didn't recognize the name at first, but when she mentioned that Mr. Langford was one of the city's biggest business owners, it clicked. He'd seen that name on billboards and news articles about charities and new companies. When it started getting dark, Clara stood up. We should get going, Sophie. Your dad's waiting for dinner. Sophie looked disappointed. Do we have to? Afraid so, Clara said gently. But maybe you'll see your friend again. Sophie turned to Ethan and Liam. Can we come back tomorrow? Ethan smiled kindly. We'll see, okay? Depends on work. Sophie nodded and waved as she left with her nanny. Ethan watched her go, feeling oddly touched. Something about that little girl made him think of how small acts of kindness could ripple out in ways no one expected. As he and Liam walked home, Liam spoke up. Dad, she's really nice. And her bear's funny. Ethan chuckled. Yeah, she's a good kid. Do you think we'll see her again? Liam asked hopefully. Ethan thought for a moment, then said, Maybe. The world's full of surprises. That night after dinner, Ethan sat by the window with a cup of tea while Liam slept soundly in the next room. The rain started again, soft and rhythmic. He stared out at the glowing city lights, thinking about the strange little encounter that seemed too small to matter. But somehow, he couldn't stop thinking about it. He remembered Sophie's smile, the way she said thank you, and how natural it had felt to help her without thinking twice. He didn't know anything about her family or who her father was. He just knew that for one short moment he'd made a scared little girl feel safe, and deep down that mattered to him more than anything. The next morning, Ethan woke to his phone buzzing. It was an unknown number. He hesitated before answering. Hello? Good morning, a polite voice said. Is this Mr. Ethan Miller? Yes, Ethan said slowly. My name is Daniel, the voice replied. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Victor Langford. He would like to speak with you personally. Would you be available this afternoon? Ethan froze. The name sounded familiar. Langford, the same name the nanny had mentioned. Yes, I suppose so, Ethan said, still unsure. May I ask what it's about? Regarding your kind help yesterday, Daniel said. Mr. Langford would like to thank you in person. Ethan felt his heart skip. He'd never spoken to anyone of that level before. A billionaire, someone who owned companies worth more than he could imagine. All right, Ethan said carefully. Where should I go? I'll send a car for you at 2 o'clock, the man said. It'll take you to the Langford estate. When the call ended, Ethan just sat there in silence for a long time. He didn't know whether to feel nervous or excited. He wasn't used to being noticed, especially not by someone powerful. When Liam came out of his room rubbing his eyes, Ethan tried to smile normally. Morning, champ. Morning, Dad. Why do you look funny? Ethan laughed softly. Just a big day ahead, I think. He didn't tell Liam about the call yet. He didn't want to make promises he didn't understand himself. But deep down, he had a feeling something important was about to happen, something that might change everything. As he stood by the window watching the sunrise over the city, Ethan didn't realize that his small act of kindness had already set a chain of events in motion, one that would reach, farther than he ever dreamed. Ethan woke up that morning with a strange feeling in his stomach. It wasn't fear exactly, but something close to it. Maybe it was nervousness, maybe disbelief. He still couldn't wrap his head around the idea that a billionaire wanted to meet him, just because he shared his sandwich with a lost little girl. He got Liam ready for school as usual, trying to keep things normal. The boy chatted cheerfully over breakfast, talking about his art class and how his friend had brought cupcakes yesterday. Ethan nodded along, smiling, though his mind kept drifting back to the phone call. After dropping Liam at school, he hurried back home to wash up and change. He didn't have fancy clothes. Most of what he owned were work shirts and jeans. He chose his cleanest one, a faded blue button-up, and ironed it twice to make sure it looked decent. Then he stood in front of the mirror for a moment, straightening his collar and running a hand through his hair. He couldn't help but laugh quietly. "You're meeting a billionaire, Ethan," he said to his reflection. "Try not to embarrass yourself." Just before 2 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up outside the building. It was the kind of car Ethan had only seen in magazines. The driver stepped out, a tall man in a suit, and opened the door for him. "Mr. Miller?" the driver asked politely. "Yes," Ethan said, trying not to sound too nervous. "Mr. Langford is expecting you," the driver said. "Please come with me." The ride was quiet. Ethan looked out the window as the city passed by, the old buildings giving way to cleaner streets and wider roads. Eventually, the car turned down a long private driveway lined with tall trees. At the end stood a large white mansion surrounded by gardens. It didn't even look real, more like something out of a movie. The driver parked and opened the door. Ethan stepped out slowly, taking in the size of the place. He'd seen big houses before, but nothing like this. A man in a dark gray suit walked down the front steps to greet him. "Mr. Miller," he said with a polite smile. "I'm Daniel, Mr. Langford's assistant." "Thank you for coming." Ethan shook his hand. "Thank you for inviting me." "Please, this way," Daniel said, leading him inside. The house was beautiful. Polished floors, large paintings, crystal lights hanging from the ceiling. Ethan felt out of place walking through it in his old boots, but Daniel's kind tone helped him relax a little. They stopped in front of a large study with tall windows overlooking the garden. Inside, behind a dark wooden desk, sat a man in his late 40s. His presence filled the room before he even spoke. He was well dressed, but not in a showy way. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, softened slightly when he looked up. "Mr. Miller," he said, standing to shake his hand. "I'm Victor Langford." "Thank you for coming on such short notice." Ethan shook his hand firmly. "It's no problem, sir. I'm just glad Sophie was all right." Victor smiled faintly. "Yes, she's fine, thanks to you." He gestured toward the chairs in front of his desk. "Please sit." Ethan sat down, trying not to fidget. "I heard from my staff that you found my daughter in the park yesterday," Victor said. "She'd wandered off from her nanny for only a few minutes, but in that short time, you made sure she was safe. And you even shared your meal with her." Ethan smiled humbly. She looked scared and hungry. "I just did what anyone would do." Victor leaned back, studying him quietly. "You'd be surprised, Mr. Miller. Not everyone would stop to help, not in this city." Ethan didn't know what to say to that. He wasn't used to praise, especially from men like this. Victor continued, his tone softer now. "Sophie wouldn't stop talking about you last night. She said, 'Daddy, he gave me half his sandwich even though he didn't have much.'" Ethan laughed a little under his breath. "Kids notice everything, don't they?" "They do," Victor said. And she was right. "You didn't have to share what little you had, but you did." There was a pause. Ethan looked down, feeling a little embarrassed. "Sir, I didn't come here expecting anything. I was just doing what felt right." Victor nodded slowly. "And that's exactly why I wanted to meet you." He stood and walked to the window, looking out over the garden. "I've spent most of my life surrounded by people who want something. Money, power, favors. It's rare to meet someone who gives without expecting anything back." Ethan wasn't sure what to say. He sat there quietly, unsure where this conversation was heading. Victor turned back toward him. "May I ask what you do for a living?" "I work construction," Ethan said. "Been doing it for years. It's not much, but it pays the bills." "You have a family?" "Just me and my boy," Ethan said with a proud smile. "Liam, he's 8. Victor nodded thoughtfully. "Sophie mentioned him too. She said he's her new friend." That made Ethan smile. Yeah, they seemed to get along well. Victor returned to his desk and picked up a small envelope. Mr. Miller, I don't usually do this, but I'd like to offer you something. A small token of appreciation. He handed the envelope across the table. Ethan hesitated before taking it. Inside were several crisp bills, more money than he'd see in a month. Sir, Ethan said quietly, setting the envelope back on the table. I can't take this. I didn't help her for money. Victor looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. I understand. Ethan stood slowly. I appreciate the thought, I really do. But I already got my reward. Seeing that little girl safe, like that's enough for me. For the first time, Victor smiled in a way that wasn't formal or guarded. You remind me of someone, he said quietly. My father. He was a kind man. The kind who believed the world could be better if everyone just helped one another. Ethan smiled modestly. Sounds like a good man. He was, Victor said, his gaze distant for a moment. Then he took a deep breath and added, Mr. Miller, would you be interested in some part-time work here at the estate? My staff mentioned we need someone experienced for maintenance and repairs. It's steady pay, flexible hours, and you'd still have time for your son. Ethan blinked, caught off guard. You're offering me a job? Victor nodded. You seem like someone I can trust, and I could use more people like that around me. Ethan hesitated. That's incredibly generous, sir. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, Victor said simply. I'll have my assistant call you tomorrow with details. Take your time. Ethan nodded slowly. All right. I'll think about it. Just then the door opened and a familiar little voice filled the room. Daddy. Sophie came running in, holding a coloring book. She stopped when she saw Ethan and her eyes lit up. Mr. Ethan. Victor chuckled softly. Sophie, what did I tell you about knocking? She giggled. Sorry, Daddy. She ran over and hugged Ethan's arm before he could react. I told you he was nice. Ethan couldn't help but smile. Hey, kiddo. How have you been? I drew something for you, she said proudly, handing him a small piece of paper. On it was a crayon drawing of 3 people, a tall man, a little boy, and a girl holding hands in a park. Ethan's heart melted. That's beautiful, he said softly. I'll keep it forever. Victor watched the exchange quietly, his expression thoughtful. It wasn't just gratitude he felt, it was respect. He saw in Ethan the kind of honesty and heart that money couldn't buy. After a few more minutes, Ethan stood to leave. Victor shook his hand again. Thank you, Mr. Miller, for what you did, and for reminding me that decency still exists. Ethan smiled. Thank you for the offer, sir, and for raising such a good kid. Sophie waved as he left. Bye, Mr. Ethan. Tell Liam I said hi. I will, he said, smiling warmly. As he stepped outside, the afternoon sun felt brighter somehow. He climbed into the waiting car, his mind spinning. He hadn't expected any of this, not the meeting, not the job offer, not the kindness from people so far removed from his world. Back home, Liam came running up the stairs before Ethan could even set down his bag. Dad, you're home. How was it? Where did you go? Ethan laughed, lifting him into a hug. I met Sophie's dad today. Liam's eyes widened. The girl from the park? That's the one, Ethan said. Turns out her dad's kind of a big deal. Liam tilted his head. Like, famous? Ethan chuckled. Something like that. Did he get mad at you? Ethan smiled. No, son. He was actually very kind. He offered me a new job. Liam gasped. A new job? Does that mean no more long hours? Ethan nodded slowly. Maybe. We'll see. That night, after putting Liam to bed, Ethan sat at the table staring at Sophie's drawing. The crayon lines were uneven, but the message was clear. A reminder of kindness, connection, and the strange way life could change when you least expected it. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long while he felt hope, real hope, blooming quietly in his chest. And somewhere across the city, in a mansion full of light and marble, Victor Langford looked out his window, thinking about a humble man who had shared his lunch with his daughter. He didn't know it yet, but that single act of kindness had changed him too, in a way that no amount of money ever could. The next morning, Ethan woke with a mix of curiosity and nervous excitement. Last night's events replayed in his mind over and over. The unexpected meeting, Sophie's innocent smile, Victor Langford's surprising offer. He wasn't used to attention from people in powerful positions. Usually life was simple. Work, care for Liam, and try to make it through the day. But yesterday had been anything but simple. After helping Liam get ready and giving him a quick breakfast, Ethan sat at the small kitchen table staring at the envelope from Victor. He hadn't opened it yet. The money inside wasn't what he was thinking about now. It was what Victor had said about the job opportunity. Maintenance at the estate. Steady work. Flexible hours. And he would get to spend more time with Liam. Ethan didn't know what to think. It was the kind of chance most people only dreamed about. Yet he worried. He had always done things on his own, never asking for favors. Could he really accept help from someone like Victor Langford? What would it mean for his life and his son's? Liam tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, can we go to the park today?" "Please?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Of course, buddy. Let's go after breakfast." Walking through the city streets, Ethan felt the weight of yesterday lingering in his chest. Every corner of the park reminded him of Sophie. He thought about the little girl's wide eyes when he shared his sandwich, the way she had hugged him like he was someone important. And in a way she had made him feel important, not for money or position, but for the simple act of being kind. They reached the park, and Liam immediately ran toward the swings, laughing as he pushed himself higher. Ethan found a quiet spot on a bench watching his son play. He took a deep breath and let the calm of the afternoon settle over him. The city seemed softer here. Even the distant traffic noise faded into the background as children's laughter filled the air. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw her. Sophie. She was there again, this time sitting on a low stone wall with her toy bear. She waved shyly when she noticed him. "Hey, Sophie," Ethan called, smiling. "Hi, Mr. Ethan," she said cheerfully, running over. "I told Daddy I wanted to see you again." Ethan laughed softly. "I'm glad you remembered me." Sophie glanced at Liam. "Is this your friend?" Ethan shook his head. "No, this is my son, Liam. Liam, this is Sophie." Liam gave a shy wave. "Hi, Sophie." Sophie smiled and held out her hand for a handshake, which Liam accepted awkwardly but with a grin. Immediately, the three of them were off, chasing each other around the park, laughing and squealing. For a while, Ethan simply watched, feeling a warmth in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. After a while, they all sat down on the grass to rest. Sophie unwrapped a small snack she had brought from home. Ethan noticed that her clothing, though clean and expensive-looking, was practical enough that she could run and play freely. She offered him some cookies. "No, thank you, sweetheart," he said. "I think I still have some from yesterday." Sophie pouted playfully. "You always share your food. That's why I like you." Ethan chuckled. "Well, kindness works both ways, doesn't it?" The conversation turned quiet, and for a moment Ethan felt a strange sense of calm. It was rare for him to have a pause in his busy life. The children played quietly with Sophie's bear, creating little imaginary adventures, and for Ethan, it was a perfect picture. His son laughing, a child in need safe and happy, and the park alive with the soft hum of the city around them. Just as he was beginning to relax, a sleek black car arrived at the park entrance. A uniformed driver stepped out and walked quickly toward them. Ethan's stomach sank. Was Sophie's father angry? Had they done something wrong? But it wasn't anger on the driver's face. Instead, he greeted Sophie warmly. "Time to go home, Sophie. Your father's waiting." Sophie turned to Ethan. "I wish you could come too." Ethan smiled gently. "I wish I could, kiddo. But we've got our own little adventures, don't we?" She nodded reluctantly and hugged him tightly. "Thank you again, Mr. Ethan. You're the nicest person ever." Ethan's heart ached at the thought of saying goodbye so soon. "Take care, Sophie. Stay safe, all right?" The driver ushered her into the car, and Ethan watched as it disappeared down the street, leaving him and Liam alone. "Dad," Liam said quietly. "She's really nice. I like her." Ethan nodded. "I like her too. She's a good kid." After a few moments, they walked home hand in hand, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows on the pavement. Ethan's mind was busy thinking about what Victor Langford had said. The job offer, the opportunity. It wasn't just a job. It was a chance to create a better life for Liam. He could finally give his son the stability he deserved. That evening, after putting Liam to bed, Ethan sat at the small kitchen table staring at the ceiling. He thought about what it would mean to work at the Langford estate. He had always been proud of what he could provide for his son, But the thought of extra money, more time, and better opportunities was tempting. More than that, he realized it wasn't just about money. It was about the chance to be part of a world he had never known, a world of possibilities, security, and hope. The next morning, as he got ready for work at his construction job, Ethan's phone buzzed. It was a message from Daniel, Victor's assistant. "Mr. Miller, Mr. Langford would like to officially offer you the position at the estate. Please come to the office at your convenience this week to discuss details." Ethan stared at the message, his heart pounding. He read it again, just to be sure he understood it. Then he looked down at Liam, who was brushing his teeth in the bathroom. "Dad," Liam said, "why do you look so happy?" Ethan smiled softly. "Just thinking about something, buddy." Nothing to worry about, but the truth was, everything had changed. A simple act of kindness had opened a door that he never even knew existed. He thought back to the day he shared a sandwich with Sophie. How small and ordinary it had seemed at the time. Now that one moment was altering the path of his life. The day passed slowly as Ethan tried to concentrate on work while thinking about what the future might hold. He finished his shift, tired but excited. That evening, he and Liam walked to the park again, a small ritual they had grown to love. Though Sophie wasn't there, her presence lingered in their conversation. Liam talked about what he might do if Sophie joined them every day, and Ethan listened, smiling quietly. Days went by, and Ethan found himself meeting with Daniel to discuss the details of the new job. The estate was enormous, filled with gardens, fountains, and rooms he had only dreamed of seeing. But it wasn't the luxury that mattered, it was the opportunity. Daniel explained the work, the pay, and the flexible hours. Ethan listened carefully, realizing that this could truly give Liam a better life. When he finally left the estate that evening, Ethan walked slowly, taking in the quiet streets. He thought about the choices that had led him here: hard work, honesty, and most importantly, kindness. It had seemed so small at the time, but now it was clear that those small actions could ripple into something much larger. That night, Ethan sat by Liam's bed after tucking him in, telling him stories about the adventures they would have once the new job started. Liam listened with wide eyes, imagining the gardens, the fountains, and the new friends they might meet. Ethan watched him sleep afterward, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He realized that life had a way of surprising you when you least expected it. Sometimes it wasn't wealth or status that mattered, it was heart. The way you treated people, the small gestures of care, the moments of connection. Ethan finally went to bed, tired but hopeful. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to dream about a future that wasn't just about surviving, but about thriving. And somewhere in the city, Sophie slept in her mansion, unaware that her simple act of wandering into a park had forever changed the life of a kind-hearted man and his little boy. Ethan didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. The world had opened a door for him, and all it had taken was a little kindness, a little courage, and a willingness to help someone in need. The day Ethan started working at the Langford estate, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was a new world for him, one he had never imagined stepping into. As he walked through the grand gates with his toolbox in hand, he paused for a moment, taking in the lush gardens, the sparkling fountains, and the quiet elegance of the estate. It was breathtaking, but more than that, it was overwhelming. A friendly voice broke his thoughts. "Mr. Miller, welcome." It was Daniel, Victor Langford's assistant. "We're ready to show you around and get you settled in. Sophie mentioned she was excited to see you again." Ethan smiled faintly. "I hope I don't embarrass myself," Daniel chuckled. "Don't worry, you'll do fine. Just be yourself. That's why you're here." The first day was busy but rewarding. Ethan fixed broken doors, repaired leaky faucets, and checked the electrical systems. The estate staff were welcoming, and though the work was different from his construction site, it felt satisfying. Here, his efforts were appreciated, and he could see the direct results of his work. Around midday, he was surprised to see Sophie and Liam being led into the gardens. Victor had arranged for them to spend some time on the estate while Ethan worked. Sophie ran toward him, her face lighting up with joy. "Mr. Ethan," she called, hugging him tightly. "You're really working here." Ethan laughed softly. "Yes, kiddo. This is my new workplace." Liam ran over as well, grabbing his father's hand. "This place is huge, Dad. Look at the fountains." Ethan smiled at his son's excitement. It is pretty amazing, isn't it? Sophie held out her toy bear. Mr. Buttons wanted to meet you too. Ethan crouched down and smiled. Well, hello, Mr. Buttons. Nice to meet you. The three of them laughed as Liam tried to take the bear gently, pretending to be polite. Victor appeared shortly afterward, observing from a distance. Ethan noticed the way he watched the children interact with him. Quiet, careful, and thoughtful. It struck Ethan that Victor wasn't just a businessman. He was a father who cared deeply about his daughter. Later, during a break, Victor approached Ethan. I wanted to thank you again for what you did, he said sincerely. You didn't know her. You didn't know me, and yet you acted with complete kindness. That's rare, Ethan. People like you are rare. Ethan shook his head. I didn't do it for praise or thanks, I just did what felt right, Victor nodded. That's exactly what makes you special. And it's why I wanted you here. This estate, my family, it's complicated. But someone like you brings balance, honesty, and heart. I want you to feel welcome, not just as an employee, but as someone my daughter can trust. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. It wasn't every day that someone of Victor's status said such things. Thank you, sir. I'll do my best, Sophie tugged on his sleeve. Can we go explore the garden? Ethan smiled. Of course. Liam, you coming? The children ran ahead while Ethan followed, watching them discover hidden corners of the estate. A small stone bridge over a koi pond, a grove of cherry trees, and a little hedge maze. Sophie laughed as she led Liam through the maze, and Ethan felt a joy he hadn't felt in years. For once, life wasn't about work or worry. It was about small moments of happiness, shared with people who mattered. As the day progressed, Ethan realized that working at the estate wasn't just about maintenance or repairs. It was about being part of a community, even one so different from the life he had always known. The staff treated him with respect, and even Victor occasionally checked in to make sure he was comfortable. That evening, when it was time to leave, Sophie ran up to him. Thank you for today. Can we play again tomorrow? Ethan laughed. We'll see, kiddo. We'll see, Liam grinned. Dad, this place is amazing. I wish we could live here. Ethan smiled, kneeling down to ruffle his son's hair. One day, buddy, we'll have adventures just like this, even if we don't live here. Walking home, Ethan felt a quiet sense of pride and hope. He had never imagined that sharing a sandwich with a scared little girl could lead to something so incredible. Yet here he was, given a chance to provide a better life for his son, make a difference, and form connections that were genuine and meaningful. Over the next few weeks, Ethan settled into his new routine. He worked during the day at the estate, and in the afternoons he would meet Liam and Sophie in the gardens. The children's laughter filled the estate with warmth and joy. Sophie taught Liam new games, and Ethan sometimes joined in, laughing along with them. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, Victor came up to Ethan while he was repairing a broken fence near the garden. I wanted to ask you something, Victor said. You've shown remarkable dedication and honesty. I think it's time we make your role more permanent here. Would you consider becoming the estate's full-time maintenance manager? Ethan was taken aback. Full-time, but I don't know if I'm qualified for something like that. Victor smiled. Qualifications can be learned. What you have in integrity, heart, and reliability, those can't be taught. And that's what matters here. Ethan looked down at the grass, thinking about Liam, about the life they had struggled through, and about the chance to finally have stability. I'd like that, sir. I really would. Victor extended his hand and Ethan shook it firmly, feeling the weight of the moment. This was more than just a job. This was a turning point. That night, Ethan sat at home with Liam, telling him the news. Guess what, buddy? I'll be working at the estate full-time. Liam's eyes widened. Full-time? Does that mean we can see Sophie every day? Ethan smiled. It means you can have fun, learn new things, and still have time to play. And yes, maybe we'll see Sophie more often too. Liam hugged him tightly. I'm proud of you, Dad. Ethan's heart swelled. I'm proud of you too, son. You've made every tough day worth it. The following weeks passed in a rhythm that Ethan could finally call peaceful. He was no longer exhausted from endless shifts at a construction site. Liam had more time to play, to explore, and to grow. The children spent afternoons learning about the gardens, the animals, and the little hidden corners of the estate. Ethan was able to teach them small lessons about fixing things, about patience, about kindness. Sophie's father, Victor, occasionally invited Ethan and Liam to dinner. At first, Ethan felt nervous sitting at the large, elegant dining table, but Victor always made him feel welcome, treating him like a family friend rather than an outsider. He saw the way Victor cared for Sophie, not just with wealth, but with genuine attention and love. It was a lesson Ethan carried with him, that true wealth wasn't measured in money, but in the people you cared for and the kindness you showed. One rainy afternoon, while Ethan was fixing a broken window in the greenhouse, Sophie came running in with her toy bear and a small notebook. "Look what I drew," she exclaimed. Ethan set down his tools and looked at the drawing. It was a picture of him, Liam and Sophie standing together in the garden surrounded by flowers and trees. Ethan's chest warmed as he saw the love and thought that had gone into the picture. "You're going to make a frame for this," he said softly, smiling, "and I'll keep it forever." Sophie's smile was radiant. "Promise?" "Promise," he said. The months passed and Ethan's life began to change in ways he never imagined. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was thriving. Liam's world expanded with new experiences, new friends, and a sense of security that Ethan had worked so hard to provide. Sophie became a constant companion, their friendship growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, Victor asked Ethan to join him in the study. "Ethan," he said, "you've become an invaluable part of our lives. Sophie trusts you completely, and so do I. I want you to know that the opportunity I offered wasn't just about work. It was about recognizing your character and giving someone with integrity a chance to be part of something bigger." Ethan nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. "Thank you, sir. I can't express how much this means to me, for Liam and for me. I'll do everything I can to live up to your trust," Victor smiled. "I know you will. And always remember, kindness like yours has a ripple effect. What you did for Sophie changed all of us, not because of the sandwich, but because it came from your heart." Ethan left that night, walking home through the quiet streets, thinking about how far life had come. From sharing a simple meal with a lost little girl to now being a trusted member of a family he respected, his journey had been shaped by small, meaningful choices. He entered the apartment and Liam ran to him with open arms. "Dad, can we play in the park tomorrow?" Ethan laughed, picking him up. "Of course, buddy. We'll have more adventures tomorrow." As he tucked Liam into bed later, Ethan looked out the window at the city lights. He realized that life was full of surprises, but the ones that mattered most came from the heart, from compassion, courage, and the willingness to help someone without expecting anything in return. And somewhere in the mansion, Sophie held her toy bear close, smiling as she remembered the man who had shared his lunch, the boy who became her friend, and the father who believed in her heart. She didn't know it yet, but that simple moment in the park had created bonds that would last a lifetime. Ethan finally lay down to sleep, a sense of peace settling over him. For the first time in years, he knew that life had more to offer than struggle. It had friendship, joy, and love. And all it had taken was one kind act, a reminder that even the smallest gestures could change the world, one heart at a time.